Hi, everybody. Welcome to Drag Racing's Golden Era. My name is Randy. I am the editor-in-chief here. And tonight, again, we are going to be joined by Steve Reyes, who has another book out in the Arcadia Publishing company called Southern California Funny Cars. This book, it's been out for a little while, and we were going to do this interview earlier, but Steve had to take care of some issues with him. So now we're at least getting it on. And in the series with Steve, he's got another one here from Arcadia Publishing, which we already talked about, and we'll talk about another upcoming one here too soon. So, Steve, without any further ado, welcome to the program. We're glad to see you.
Well, I'm glad to be seen right now. I tell you.
So how we doing? We healthy again?
We're getting there. Put it that way. We're on the right side of the grass, so that's good.
That's good. I got to ask you, I mean, Arcadia Publishing, I've read about them, and this isn't a standard kind of book for them to do. And how did you manage to get hooked up with Arcadia to do this?
It was through Land Speed Louise, who does a lot of Bonneville stuff. She was doing a book on women in Bonneville for Arcadia. She convinced Arcadia to do it. She was looking for some photos of some women racers that I may have photos of over the years. And she got a hold of me and she told me all about Arcadia, and she said I should contact them because they kind of like to delve into a different line of history type books. So one thing led to another, and I did an author proposal of the NorCal book, and they liked what they saw, and that kind of started the ball rolling. And I enjoy doing the books for them because they're very much history oriented, and there's no bull. I mean, it's basically they want to know the facts, and they're easy to work with. I'll put it that way. I mean, they're one of the true publishing places that I've worked with that they're straight up. They don't play games. They don't they don't hide anything from you. It's all right out there. They got everything's in writing. You signed the contract, and I like the author proposal where you sit down and you write down what you want to do, and you put down contacts and everybody that can help you promote this book. And it's a new thing for them, the automotive end of it, but they seem to be enjoying what I've done for them, what Louise did for them. So,
keep it rolling, right?
Yeah, we're doing it.
So right now, before we start on this book, you're currently working on, is it Southern California Top Fuel?
Yeah, Southern California Top Fuel Dragsters. It's basically all front engine dragsters from the era of, I would say, from the 50s to around 74.
Okay.
There were still a few front motor cars running then, but it's basically cuts off. I would say at 72 was when the influx of the back motor cars, but it was fun because that's my favorite. One of my favorite types of racing was the front motor top fuel guys, and Southern California had a ton of them. I mean, it was like if you had a brother or a brother-in-law and you wanted to go drag racing, you built a top fuel dragster, and you go get a $50 Chrysler engine out of a junkyard, throw a blower on it, and get some guy that's foolish enough to sit there with 100% nitro running through that engine and say, okay, go from one point, to here, you go there to there, and hopefully you get there in one piece. So
there's a huge learning curve on sticking nitro in a blown motor. So there was a lot of grenades that happened. Matter of fact, I don't know if you can see this or not. I saw Harry Hibbler a few weeks ago. He gave me one of his little grenade.
Hand grenade Harry, yes.
Yeah, he gave me one of his grenade pins. So I wear that proudly.
He was very exciting.
Yeah, well, there's a reason it's called Hand Grenade Harry.
Yeah, oh, definitely, especially when he drove for John Smizer. That was an interesting pairing right there. But
Well,
He,
I was hoping he was going to sit in a cackle car, but he said, he's got a pacemaker in, and they said that
yeah.
the Magneto wouldn't let him sit in that car and cackle it. So it was too bad that he couldn't cackle, but he's a cool guy. Southern California funny cars. Let's start first by saying, where can we get this from? Do we go to Amazon, or does Arcadia sell this directly, or how do we get it?
Well, basically, it's Amazon and Barnes and Noble, any place that would carry history type books. There's I believe, a motor books store in Burbank, California. They carry all the Arcadia stuff as far as automotive oriented. So it's basically the big two would be, or big three would be Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and let me see, Barnes and Noble. There's one more. I'm sorry, I'm having brain fade. Brain
That's
fade here.
okay. I'm sure if you just Google this book, you'll be able to find a place
Oh
to buy
yeah,
it. No
yeah.
doubt about it. Um, uh, Steve and I were chatting just shortly before we came on here, and I got to tell everybody before we go on with this that I can't put this book down. It is Steve Reyes' ability to capture images and the history behind these images. I've read this book 3 times cover to cover, and every time I open it up, I find something new that I'm fascinated by. So this is well worth the trip or the money to purchase this book. And it's not that expensive. I suggest everybody put this on their coffee table. So
It'd be a nice, right now being Christmas, it'd be a nice Christmas gift if somebody was really into the funny car part of drag racing, and especially the older stuff, because that stuff's gone. And I was fortunate enough to be there and record these crazy people, running these funny cars, and it was a new adventure. Every race in Southern California, every funny car race they had, starting with some of the big races, funny car races they had at Lions in '67, and then progressing through into the early '70s with the manufactured races and the Nitro championships and all that. I mean, it was just mayhem, where you had a lot of the front motor top fuel guys say, "Hey, they're making money doing funny cars. Well, hey, let's build a funny car." And you had guys like Gene Beaver and the Condit brothers. Let's park the top fuel car. Let's go funny car racing, and they did rather well. But there's a whole bunch of other folks that I went through the book the other night, and it's like, oh yeah, they used to run a top fuel car. That's right, they did too. So it's basically for a lot of the funny cars that showed up in Southern California in that era, these were ex top fuel guys that we got to make a little more money here when we go out racing. So it's just, they just throw this guy in a fiberglass shell, and again, point A to point B. And a lot of those guys, most of them had one engine. They ran one engine. They had one body on the car. They towed an open trailer. I mean, it was kind of animalistic, but they got the job done. A lot of those guys did. And I mean, if you've read anything on like Don Perdome, right? Perdome's a dragster guy. He hated funny cars, and that's strange coming from him, but he really hated them until McEwen got him going with the Mattel deal and all that, and it opened his eyes a little bit. But he was him and Roland, in the Hawaiian, and then prior to that, Perdome drove for Ivo, but Roland was the first big top fuel guy that switched from dragsters to funny cars, and yeah, the
well,
rest was history.
there's a picture in here in the beginning of the book, and I see this came out of the Greg Sharp collection. I'm just going to hold this up here. 554 coupe.
Yeah.
Is there any it says here that this is possibly, and I use the word possibly, considered to be the first funny car that ever ran. Is there any way to back that up, or is this just everybody's got their own theory on this one?
It's a personal opinion. People, well, it's basically, it's got the the old style body on it, so it can't really be a true funny car. But a lot of people, hey, it's full bodied, had a blown fuel motor in it, and it ran very, very well with Gene Mooneyham tuning the thing. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, yeah, that was a real funny car. Well, then you have Gene Mooneyham tuning, Jack Christman's Saxon Sons Comet. And a lot of people say, no, that was the first full bodied, actual, true funny car. And then you have people that'll say, well, the Dodge Chargers were the factory duo that came out and ran, but they didn't run fuel; they ran gas. So they were actually, gas coupes with modern style bodies on it back in the day. So,
And the transition to funny car didn't just boom. Funny cars didn't just actually show up. There was a whole factory experimental class that led up to the funny cars with the altered wheelbases and all that too.
Oh yeah, yeah. It progressed because guys start going quicker, faster, and it's like, oh, yeah, let's see if we play a little bit with the wheelbase, the cars that transfer the weight. Yeah, look, they're going quicker, and sure, they started going quicker, and Fran Hernandez of Mercury is the one that basically coined the phrase "funny car." I mean, he told his racers that he had at the time that the factory was sponsoring that we've got to go out and beat them funny cars. And that stuck with that was the phrase that was picked up by everybody. And no, I mean, you got floppers, you got plastic fantastics, but funny cars, that's that's the key.
And the funny thing about this is, speaking of funny, is that there are like people, if I remember my history right, people like CJ Hart who didn't understand the funny car class and didn't even want to book them because he just didn't understand what they were up to.
Well, I mean, it was basically, you had Irwindale, you had Lyons, and you had, of course, Orange County in '67. But I think CJ kind of saw the writing on the wall, so to speak. And the biggest two funny car events that I went to were at Lyons. They were in '67. Well, in '67, I think there was a funny car event about every other weekend at Lyons because I was going from Northern California to Southern California, and I was going with the guys that owned the Chevy Too Heavy funny car, the ex Steve Bovan car. They threw me in the back of their station wagon. I was the official touring photographer, at whatever, 17 years old, whatever it was. And, and we were going to Lyons and they were first round runner up pretty much every time because the car was so outdated, but they were happy. I mean, they were just, and then they would stay to watch the show and I would shoot photos of, everybody there. And then '68, they had the biggest funny car event ever at Lyons. It was the AHRA Funny Car Nationals, which Lieberman won. Jungle Jim won with his Nova. So yeah, Lyons turned it around. CJ turned it around, and but if you had a funny car in Southern California, you didn't have to leave to race. You didn't have to go to anywhere. I mean, they would just alternate. Orange County would run one weekend, and then you could go to Irwindale, and then you go to Lyons, and this went on until Lyons closed. But you could still go to Northern California and race, Fremont, up in that area, Lodi, whatever. And I mean, you didn't have to leave California if you had a Southern California-based funny car. It was that crazy as far as that they were that much in demand.
I suppose they were crowd pleasers, so you fill the stands, and that's I have no doubt that's why CJ changed his attitude on him. He could see the money coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically, he would have CJ was not a dummy. He would have meetings with the racers, and they would talk about it. And the Top Fuel guys would have meetings with CJ. The funny car guys would come and talk to him. And, they would work things out as far as, okay, we're going to run a Top Fuel show, this weekend, and then we're going to run funny cars. And CJ would blend injected because they had the injected funny car circuit. And they would also run, at the same time, or they would, injected funny cars and fuel alders one weekend. And then it was just a complete, alter. You basically it's like you'd go crazy trying to cover all that stuff, and I did. I mean, I was just going wacky. If whatever I wanted to shoot, I really didn't have to leave Southern California after I moved there in '70. I honestly, NHRA only had a couple of national events, so then you had.
It's one of them things, Steve, that I wish I'd have been born a decade before so I could have witnessed all this in person.
It was just, you had like Doug Cruz, with the PDA races. Oh, those were happenings. Those were crazy. And then Irwindale had the Grand Prix of drag racing, it's 32 top fuel cars, 16 funny cars, and 16 junior fuelers, and then the fuel alters. I mean, it was just a whole evening of breathing in nitro fumes.
Well, so I'm just flipping through this book here, and I did again this morning, and like I said, this is the third full reading of this. This book's going to be worn out. I came across a picture that of Big Al, and I had always been told that was a Merlin engine in there, but I see that you have it listed as having an Allison engine in there.
Yes, it did.
Okay, so I've seen back and forth on the internet over the years about whether that had a Merlin or an Allison. But you're saying it was an Allison, so I'm taking that as gospel.
I saw photos of the car running testing at Lyons. I wasn't there, but friends of mine had photos of the car testing without the body on it, and it's definitely an Allison engine in that car. So early drag sport. I think in '65, the Drag Sport Illustrated had a really cool photo of the car just smoking the tires off the starting line at Lyons with no body on it. And just obviously it's a big old Allison engine sitting there. And it was that car was incredible the way it sounded with that Allison engine in it.
I can only imagine that had to be cool. I see you've got a full face picture of it's got a glare here of how do I get this? Jack Chrisman.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, from your historical point of view, how important and influential was Jack Chrisman to that Southern California funny car movement?
Well, he's the father of funny cars, plain and simple. I mean, he's the guy that, because Fran Hernandez gave him the Mercury Cyclone after Jack was hurt in a top fuel car and recovering. And, Fran knew that, Jack didn't want to quit racing, but he needed something. So Fran gives him a car, like a stocker. Of course, Chrisman has Bill Shrewsbury go out and drive it a couple times. And it's like, oh, yeah. Okay. So next thing you know, I mean, he goes and gets Helen Sachs, Sachs and Sons, the dealership, to sponsor him. And next thing, there's a big old Gene Mooneyham blown motor in the thing, running probably 80% nitro. And it's like a lot of people don't realize they tested that car at Fremont before they ran it in Southern California. It was something else when Jack brought that car up in Fremont, because nobody knew what the heck it was. I mean, he pulls up into the staging lanes, and here's this white Comet, Saxon Sons on the side, and he's got this, the blower, and it's like people are like, maybe it's a gas coupe. They don't know what it is. He fires that thing up, and I'm just a kid in the grandstand, so to speak. I'm standing up against the fence with my 620 Brownie, right? Yeah. And that thing comes, it was like the parting of the Red Sea, in the upper staging area in Fremont. You see all these people just kind of move, and here it comes. Boom, boom, boom. And everybody's like, whoa, what the heck is this thing? He pulls out, and, he's just sitting there, and it's just with that, nitro. And they brought him up, staged him. Fremont had a flag man. There was no Christmas tree, and they staged him and told him go. And I'll tell you what, it was like the tires just erupted, and it sounded like a top fuel dragster with a body on it. And the people fell out of the grandstands there. They did. I mean, they went crazy. And it's like, this thing is pretty cool. So, I mean, Chrisman was the guy. I mean, he just, I don't know why he's smiling in that photo. He just blew the roof off his car, but there's no roof on the car, if you can tell. But Jack's that way. I mean, he ran his stuff hard, and he put on a show for anybody and everybody. If there was one person in the grandstand or 10,000, Jack would be out there. He put on a show for him with whether it be the Roadster funny car that he burned to the ground in New York, or that car that he blew the roof off of in Bakersfield, or whatever he drove. There was no, God, I think we'll just run 20% nitro, and yeah, we'll get down the track and we'll, yeah, no,
put on the show.
Well, I mean, he built that Sidewinder. He built the Sidewinder Mustang. It was going to be but Ford dropped out of racing, and financially, that's an experimental car, obviously, with a Sidewinder. So old Jack just sold the car to Roy Mijas out of southern Santa Ana. And he went and did his rear end business where he's building rear ends for race cars. But Jack lived 2 streets over from me in Long Beach.
Oh, really?
And you go by his house, and if he had the garage door open, this is when Ford was backing him, and he had crates of Ford motors stacked to the ceiling in his garage. You go by, and on the same street, Eddie Munster lived on the same street with Patrick. And Fitzpatrick played with Chrisman's kids. They were all, oh yeah. I mean, one little section there in Long Beach. The place I lived in was Bill Shrewsbury's ex place. So,
wow. Steve, I gotta. You make me jealous every time I talk to you. Wow, what a storied life.
I'll tell you what, it was interesting living in Los Angeles.
So there's a car that has, I've been seeing for years in pictures, and one of them that I got to ask you about is the Phony Pony. I mean, this thing is such a unique looking car, stretched out, narrow. It's just whose car was that, and what's the story behind this thing?
Junior Brogdon, he saw the money, the cha-ching going on with funny cars, and he had a junior fuel car. That's a junior fuel car that he basically cut the body down, Mustang body, and he fit it on a junior fuel car, and he ran it with an injected 289 Ford in it on fuel. Then he put two 289 motors in it in a row and ran it with 2 motors in it. Then he took those out and he put a blower on a 289 and ran that. It ran it as a blown funny car. And then he actually, in 1970, he built a standard Mustang funny car and ran that for a little bit. And then Pro Stock came in, and he saw that there wasn't a lot of Pro Stocks in Southern California. So he built a Pro Stock Pinto called Pee Wee, and he ran that for a while.
Well, I guess now you've explained why this car, and I'm looking at a picture of it right here, why that car is so unique looking. It's narrowed up and it's lengthened out.
It's a junior fuel car.
It's a
modified
neat
body on it.
That's a neat looking car. I came across a picture in here too of Doug Thorley's first Corvair that he put together, which a buddy of mine, Paul Brown, now owns. They restored this thing down here in Chicago, and I got to tell you, that thing is just an amazing looking car. With my understanding was they used a lace tablecloth to put the design on the side of that thing.
That thing was a bad Mombre, boy. Oof, that car.
Yeah.
You know who ended up with that car was Joe Paisano. The Paisano brothers, they had crashed their Corvair along with Randy Wall's car. They ran into a Randy at the finish line, and they both went over the guardrail and destroyed both cars. And the Paisano needed a car, and Thorley was revamping his whole racing operation. So Paisano bought that car from Doug Thorley, and they ran it until Sushma Sabara took over the driving chores of the Corvair and then stuffed it into the guardrail at Orange County, and that was kind of the swan song for the
Wow.
one of five crashes I think that Paisano had. Yeah, I think it was five, maybe six.
Was he trying to keep up with John Force in the early days or what?
Well, Forrest was just kept setting himself on fire, and yeah, and basically it was either when Forrest, had the Night Stalker car,
Yeah.
because he ended up with Christman's old Sidewinder car that kept throwing chain links at the starting line. Larry Sutton had moved from Lyons to Irwindale as the starter, and Force was banned by Sutton because he kept kept breaking chains and throwing the chains everywhere. So,
Speaking of Sutton, by the way, in January, my wife and I are going out to Vegas. We're going to hang out with Joe Schubeck and Gigi, and we're going to go up to a car show in Mesquite. And then we're going to take Joe's Escalade and bop on up to Larry Sutton's place and go hang out with him for a night and go out and see some Zion Park and hang out in his garage for an evening.
cool.
So it's going to be a fun trip out there. Larry's a cool dude.
Oh, he's got some great stories too, dealing with some of these crazy racers. I mean, just
Yeah, you had a picture. I think it was your picture. Actually, I'm not sure if it was your picture where he's flying through the air after Carl Olson threw a piece of his flywheel at him, hit him right in the chest. I don't know how he survived that starting line out there. Because let's face it, not every you had a couple of guys with some money, like you said, could throw a top fuel motor together. They could go out racing, had no idea what the hell they were doing with that motor. We're blowing stuff up all over the place. So being on the starting line in those days was a risky proposition.
oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, and Sutton went through a lot. I mean, at Lyons and at Irwindale. I mean, you stand next to those things, it's like, okay, they just kind of, it's like a grenade. They pull the pin, and you're hoping, yeah, you're hoping that it's not an early explosion from, I think the closest that I saw at Irwindale was the Larry Dixon blew a blower off the racing Don Garlis in '73 at Irwindale. I don't see how Larry and then half the people on the starting line didn't get hurt, and I don't know how I survived, and it blew up right in front of me. But it's a dangerous place. The starting, they say everything that happens at the finish line. Well, no.
Oh. Mike Couch is a good friend of mine, and whenever we go to these cackle events, and if he happens to be with me, he always gives me the same advice year after year. Do not stand next to it. Stand off to the back side or the front side. Blower parts come out the side, not the back. So he's always giving me advice on the stories he's told me too about the starting line and parts flying all over the place.
Well,
Wow.
yeah, well, Lions had the rollers, the starting rollers, and a couple of people were hurt really bad with engine hydraulicing because guys would forget to back the motor off. They'd be all trying to get the motor together so they could make the next round, and they put the cars on the rollers and they try to start them up, and all the nitros in it kaboom. Bobby Hightower, who drove quite a few different cars, he got hurt pretty good. His arm was almost severed off. I mean, I think it was maybe James Warren's motor blew the whole side of the block out, and Peace got him in the arm because he was out. He was helping hold the car on the rollers, and it was just a huge explosion. But it's like a hand grenade going off, and Lions had some interesting things with the rollers. I'll tell you, it was crazy.
Steve, why don't you tell us? We those of us who never had the ability to see the rollers, how you started a car up. You always see guys that are holding on to roll cages and stuff. Was that necessary? You had to hang on to that car while it was being roll started. You see a push car behind it. How did that all work?
Yeah, it's like a ballet. Everybody had it was a routine that held on, and the driver was given the proper signals, and everything had to be coordinate. And you usually had two guys out on the front wheels. And the car basically, they would start the rollers and the car going, almost like you're push starting it.
Yeah.
And the car would drift. It would go back and forth. So that's why you had to hold it in place. And then it would cackle. And then everybody would kind of like just peel off and the car would come off the rollers. Now, if you did it wrong, all bets are off. I mean, and they learned from experience that starting. I watched them start cars on the rollers at Dallas. Dallas had rollers in the pits so they could warm them up. They didn't have to push up and down on the return roads or anything like that. They had them in the pits, and it was interesting to watch them in Dallas. The same type of thing with people holding onto their cage, front end, whatever, and it was just a ballet. It's just a coordinated ballet, is what it is. Yeah.
Braver people than me, because I got to tell you, even when I'm doing these cackle events, these engines scare the hell out of me.
Oh, they should, because a lot of those guys, like you said, don't know what the heck they're doing. Even now, you get guys that were enthusiastic, have the money, they restore a car, they build a replica, and you definitely need somebody out there that knows what they're doing with a nitro motor, because it's controlled chaos is what it is. And if you don't have the right people helping you, it can be very expensive.
Well, and I interviewed Steve Gibbs before we went out to the Nitro Revival, just a little promo spot for him. And he reiterated twice in that interview. He said, some of these guys think they've got a toy here, and we have to keep
oh yeah,
hammering on them that this is not a toy. You guys got to follow our rules here. And even at that, we had I believe we had two cars out there this year that put chunks out of the side of their blocks. Yeah, so I mean, Steve's been lucky up to now with the Nitro Revival, and I hope he has the same luck going forward. This year was the first year that I saw a couple of engines go, but I think these guys get over enthusiastic about their cackle cars, and they're trying to get as much flame as they can out of them. All of a sudden, they've got a grenade on their hands.
Yeah, if they don't have the proper guy tuning the car that knows what they're doing, and the percentage of nitro. I mean, there's just so many aspects to do. I mean, I've never cackled. Well, I've sat in one. I've cackled a couple of cars, but as far as like tuning a motor or whatever like that, it's like the guys that I got to cackle their cars. I knew them. I knew that they wouldn't blow me up if I sat in that car. The late Wayne King. He was really cool. He said, this is what we're going to do. Blah, 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 blah. I got this much percentage. He says, don't freak or anything. He said, so yeah, they stuffed me in this car and we cackled it. And same with the late John Ewald. It's like his car, they dismantled the car to get me in the car and put the cowl on and everything. And I got to cackle it. And that was fun. I mean, it's definitely fun. It's definitely a different deal, but yeah, I understand, the logistics of doing something like that. And it can be very
Steve has had a good run here, and I hope the good run continues for him. So back to the book here.
Okay.
One of my favorite things, I don't know why I love this car, the Wonder Wagon. There's something about that Vegas station wagon. I don't know what it is. It's such a cool car, but my understanding was just because of the design of the car, it was never a successful body style.
I got to do the photos for Drag Racing Magazine and for ITT Continental Bakeries that
okay.
And the cars were cool, but aerodynamically they were I mean, you could talk to Kelly Brown about that, or Glenn Way. They crashed one testing, and so Glenn Way was out of a ride, and then Kelly Brown is the one that continued on until Don Schumacher took over the deal. And Schumacher, well, he ran the body, the Vega body panel once, I think, and he blew the body off. And he said, "The heck with this," and they painted up a CUDA body that looked like the Wonder Bread wrapper.
Yeah.
And they put, the sleek swoopy lowrider Vega, the yellow Vega body on his, and that's how he ran the two cars with Raymond Beadle driving the Cuda, which a
Oh,
lot of people don't
I did not
realize that
know
Beadle
that.
drove for Schumacher.
Okay, I did not know that. Um, so right below it is a piece of history here that is you cannot separate from Southern California Funny Car is the team of Kirby and Butera and Quick and Blood, with the artwork and I mean, I didn't even realize it was called this, the Funny Car Superstore, basically a funny car supermarket where one-stop shopping for everybody. But I mean,
Yeah.
what came out of that thing was unprecedented, unbelievable.
Well, I would go down there because I lived just up the road because the North Long Beach Bellflower is where it was located, and excuse me, and it was just insane, just insane racers and crew guys and engine builders, and you could run into anybody there at any particular time, especially in the wintertime. The wintertime they have funny car bodies stacked up waiting to get painted, and then the guys would bring the chassis, they fit the bodies and everything on there, and I would just go down there and talk to the guys about photographing their cars or meeting them for the first time. I think I met Phil Castronovo there. I met the first time I ever met Billy Meyer was there. Meyer was I think he was about 16 years old, and he was riding a mini bike at about 100 miles an hour down the sidewalk, and does a speedway bike slide right up next to me and says hello. I mean, that's how I met Billy Meyer, and I mean, just you could run into anybody at Kirby's place. I mean, it was just that's just the way it was, and it was a fun deal to go down there. And the Big Willie would be down there working on his the Queen Daytona car, or Candies and Hughes at Goldstein would be hanging out down there, and a lot of times the guys would just come down there and hang out, just watch. They want to watch, Kenny Youngblood work, and it basically Kirby was so busy. He got in trouble from the city of Bellflower because he didn't have a spray booth. He did all that basically funny car painting without a spray booth. I have photos.
Wow. Well, and wasn't Keith Black right around that area too?
Yeah, Keith Black was just up the street in Southgate. Yeah, Black was just just a stone's throw, so to speak. And then
So this was like Funny Car Central.
Woody Gilmore was in the area also. Woody's shop, and then Butera's shop was I think about 20 miles down the road, and we know Butera owned part of that operation. It was Kirby and Butera, and they initially started the body business out of there, and the artist that was the home artist, so to speak, the guy that was Nat Quick. Kenny Youngblood freelanced. He came in and used the facility. So that got to be Kenny's home base, but the home base artist was Nat Quick. So, and when you could get Nat Quick up to, Nat partied a lot, put it that way.
Why does that not surprise me?
Well, he was a cool guy. I mean, but he procrastinated a bit, and, I mean, I have photos of him, I believe there's a photo in the book of him pinstriping the Brand X funny car in the pits during the race at Dallas because they needed the car and he hadn't finished the car. And they said, we got a booking, we got to go. So they picked the car up, and Nat said, well, I'll catch up with you. And he brought his his paint and everything, brushes with him, and he would do lettering, he would do pinstriping right in the pits on cars that these guys were anxious. They'd show up, hey, we got a booking, and in New England we got a booking, when the racing really started to pick up in the Midwest and the East, these guys that were touring pros, Now we need our car now. And it's like, okay.
Well, Carl Olson told me too, even Kenny Youngblood, he's like, we had to go down, him and Mike Cool had to take turns going down and basically sitting on Kenny Youngblood to make sure that that car got done and got lettered on time for them to debut it.
Well, yeah, well, Kenny's a perfectionist. I mean, he goes the extra mile. And if you can't accept Kenny the way he is, as far as like being just an incredible artist, and just then you shouldn't have your car lettered by him, because he takes his time, he does it right. Yeah, he won't do a shoddy, yeah, here it is, just get it out of the shop type of deal. He
Yeah.
never has been that way, never will be. He's just that's the way he is.
Speaking of Kenny, did you see the new artwork that was being done out there at the Lions Automobilia Foundation that he was
I
doing?
haven't.
It's he is still something else. I mean, the
Oh
work they're
yeah.
doing inside there, wow.
Oh, he probably one of the top guys ever to paint a race car. And
Well, and to that point, Nat Quick and Kenny Youngblood are responsible for some of the most iconic and coolest design funny cars that ever hit a drag
yeah,
strip. And I mean, the one I got sitting right back here, the snake and all that stuff, that's a Kenny Youngblood deal. I mean, it just that combination of people, wow, what they did. I mean, and let's face it, without the flashy graphics on these cars, it's just a fiberglass body going down the track. We were all mesmerized when I was a kid by just the flashy designs of these cars.
yeah. They were just so unique. They were basically, artwork on four wheels. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes on two wheels.
And sometimes burning to the ground. And
Yeah, yeah, that too.
there's another point. The we look at least I do anyway, look at this era of funny cars as like the definite golden age of the funny car, through the early and mid and even late 70s.
Yeah.
But the sport was not safe by any means whatsoever. There was some, I mean, I see in your book there's a few people listed in here that lost their lives doing funny cars.
Yeah, it was, like you said, you got to take them seriously. They were funny, but seriously funny, from the standpoint of you could get hurt really bad in one of those things. And burns were, I mean, God, it wasn't if you're going to get burned, as when you're going to get burned in a funny car. The old, that was the old saying. I mean, these guys, like Lou Arrington with the Brutus car, he basically had the big fire at Lions when he blew a transmission up. And when he got his new car, his Firebird, he had his helmet painted, Fireball on his on his helmet. I mean, that's the attitude this guy's had. I mean, it's like Leroy Goldstein. Goldstein told me that he had little windows installed on the Candies and Hughes, or the Ram Chargers car, right?
Yeah.
Because he wanted to see how much fire was coming at him. That was his deal.
Wow. Well, one fact that I didn't know after reading your book was that Kenny Bernstein himself was burned in the L.A. hooker pretty badly. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he got his hands burned pretty good, and that wasn't the first time, because he got burned in. He drove the ill-fated Engine Masters Ray Alley's Cougar for a minute second, basically. He torched that, and he torched himself in that car pretty good. He got burned pretty good in that car too. But I believe that was in 69 or 70. That car was very unique. It was built with the driver offset, so it was like the driver was in a regular stock position. He didn't have to look around an engine. He was like off to and they had a clear view. And unfortunately, car, it burned, and Kenny did get, he got hurt, and they got, recovered enough. He drove top fuel dragsters. He drove for the Anderson brothers, and then he got burned. In the L.A. hooker at I think it was Baton Rouge. They burned the hooker to the ground. So, that's just the way it was back then. You're here today, gone tomorrow, as far as the the one was it 1 month, they had burned 18 funny cars to the ground in 1 month.
Wow.
And nationwide, yeah, it was 18. That was and that included like Mickey Thompson's Grand Am and the Trojan Horse, and I mean it's listed there in the book. I that was my research, boy. I went, I delved into that, some of the, I guess you'd say, forgotten facts or facts that people really, some of the historians didn't really want to come out, but that's just the way it is. I mean,
Yeah.
they, they're
I'm curious, Steve, when you're doing research, I know we have this wonderful tool, Google, but trust me, I do my research too before I do interviews. And sometimes Google is just garbage. Sometimes you get good stuff. How do you really do your research on these? Do you just pick up the phone and start calling people, or how do you do it?
Well, I can't call people because they're dead and they
Yeah,
never
well,
return
that's
my
true.
call. So, but what I do is I have a collection of drag news, Drag Sport Illustrated, uh, National Dragster that dates back to the Stone Age, so to speak. And I also have drag racing magazines and different drag racing publications that they had like 6 issues and then they died. But I have all that stuff. And you sit down and okay, I'm going to research funny cars. So you start thumbing through. Okay, the funny cars started about 65, 66. You just start looking and reading and looking and reading columns from different division directors, and you read, columns from different writers, drag news or whatever, and you read, Ralph Goodall Jr. wrote some incredible stuff on Lions, and Ralph was the kind of guy that he would describe everything into detail. You read all that and you decipher it, and then okay, well, am I going to put down this about the Tennessee Boll Weevil or whoever, or whatever, and you just go through all that, the factoids, whether it be from Superstock, drag racing, whatever, because I know those guys, the guys that wrote that stuff, was no bull. Those guys were enthusiastic, but they didn't want to take a chicken up and blow it up into a turkey and sell it to you. They told you how it was, and it basically, those facts help me. I gathered that stuff. You decipher it. You decide what you want to put down. You decide, okay, am I going to talk about, so-and-so sleeping with so-and-so's wife or girlfriend or the groupies, or, there's all kinds of aspects of this whole deal. And then you have your own experiences hanging out with these guys. I mean, like I used to hang out with the Chevy Too Heavy guys, or I hung out with the Parts Mart guys in Northern California, and the Harry Canary guys, and Lieberman. I hung out with Lieberman when Lieberman was, he had just got out of high school, basically. So, you hang out with these guys, and I remember talking to these guys about racing and about, I'm very fortunate. My memory is not, exited my brain as of yet. So I can recall a lot of this stuff, and I think 99% of it is pretty much, right on from what I can remember. I remember which guys were a-holes, and I remember which guys were really cool to me. I mean, it was the kid photographer. I mean, you had guys that would hand me a $20 bill to keep me alive through the wintertime, funny car guys. And then you had other guys that say, go away, kid. I don't, you got stupid blurry photos, go away. And and guys like Kip Brundage of the Parts Mart. I mean, whatever you shoot, kid, I want. Or you got the Harry Canary guys, or even Lieberman. Whatever you shoot, I want. And the Goodies Speed Shop guys, the Richard Guest, who sponsored 4 or 5 funny cars at one time. Yeah, those guys kept me alive in then doing the funny car stuff. And I moved to Southern California, continued on because I found a couple of real good guys that would turn me on to, okay, well, so-and-so's in town. Why don't you go talk to him about shooting his car? And because I was doing a lot more magazine work then, Yeah, and you'd go and you get introduced to Phil Castronova or Tom Prock or Al Bergler or just, and then they would in turn would introduce me to somebody else, and then in turn, it was just a boom, 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 boom. So yeah, I mean that's dealing with the funny car guys. I mean, um,
Well, I got to ask you a question, and this is sort of more of a philosophical question because my deal here keeps growing on a regular basis, and our audience level keeps going up, and money's coming in a little bit better now, and things are progressing. And when I look at the work that you did, the body of work that you did during that period of time, um, one thing that always strikes me is there had to have been just an absolute all-out passion there for you to survive basically living like a vagrant for a while to
yes.
get to the point where you're at now. I mean, it just that has to be passion driven, right? I'm assuming that's what kept you going.
Oh yeah, just to me it was better. Well, it was like what's the Confucius say? You find a you find a job you love and you never work a day in your life,
Yeah.
and that's the key. I thought. I mean that even working by myself, freelance, and then working with Argus. And when I worked with Argus Publishers, I worked for them for 20 years, and I was very fortunate. I could go in and say, okay, there's a drag race in you know Uganda or something. Okay, can I go? And then they would say, well, can you shoot a couple of car features too? Okay, that'll pay for the trip. So that's how I ended up going to a lot of things. And then they had the Super Chevy circuit, and I shot that stuff. And I mean, it snowballed, to doing all off road stuff, all that. And my passion was like drag racing, of course. But then I got into shooting speedway bikes, flat track motorcycles, motocross, um, and then I was at the beginning of the monster trucks, if you believe that. I mean, I was shooting those guys, when the show was. Bob Chandler would bring Bigfoot out, and he'd drive around. He'd drive around an arena or a stadium, and that was the show.
Yeah, I remember
That
those
was
days.
it.
Bigfoot was it, man.
That was it. Yeah, and Everett Jasmer in the USA One. Those are the two guys that came out of Missouri that started
Yeah.
that whole deal. And I was there with a camera. So and I did those guys for 7, 8 years, the beginning. And but yeah, my passion's always been the drag racing. I was sad when the front motor cars went away. I'll be honest. I mean, those front motor cars, they're my they're my guys, but the back motor cars, like the photo behind you of Bob Dumont, they were exciting too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very exciting run on that one right there. Part of the tire went over my head, and I kept shooting. It's like Bowers did the same thing at Bakersfield, and a flaming piston bounced right by us, where there was like 3 or 4 of us standing at the finish line, and there's this piston bouncing on fire. Okay.
Is that the Bowers picture where you can see what is it, the flywheel, or there's disc?
No, that's the other explosion Larry had at Orange County.
That is a crazy photo, Steve.
Yeah, that was it was one of those deals where I kind of like went, oh, do I have any holes in here?
that capture, wow, the pieces flying through the air. Brave guy, because I would have been duck and cover.
That was one shot, and all I saw in that photo was the clutch dust. That's all I saw. Yeah, I thought he just lost the clutch or something. Well, he did lose the clutch, but I never saw the pieces. I never saw that. And unfortunately, a piece hit a spectator that was walking. Guy was walking through the pits, and one of the bigger pieces of the flywheel came down and made an indentation in the asphalt, bounced up, and basically took his knee off while he was walking. So yeah, somebody was hurt on that. None of the photographers, well, me, I was the only one down there, of course, but on that side, they have the Vultures Hill. They used to have the Vultures Hill in Orange County. Everybody would stand on the hill, but I got called across. Somebody called me across, and I came across, and I got trapped on the one side. So, okay, well, it's Bowers. Okay, I'll shoot a photo, and
Well,
boom.
I have to relay a piece of information to you. So of course I was at Nitro Revival here, and we're starting to publish some of our footage of that. And um, the camera people, Dave Commel got in the magic car and did a cackle in it. So, you look around and here's all the media people standing there with their cameras on Commel, so now Commel's the celebrity of the moment. But having conversations with all these guys, your name came up. And I remember, I don't remember who said this to me, but the paraphrasing was, yeah, if we saw Reyes leave the starting line and go to the bottom end of the track or the top end or wherever he went, we all knew, okay, we got to follow Reyes because he's the guy. He knows what the hell he's doing. Let's follow him. He knows something's coming. If he's going down there, we're going down there too. So,
Yeah,
I mean, the photographers had a hell of a lot of respect for you and your ability to make those captures.
after a while, yeah, it was like I had my little minions behind me or something. It's like, well, which was okay, That's like, all right, whatever, and it's like, okay, you can get the photo, fine, but I'll beat your ass every time. I mean, that's the attitude you had to take. I mean, you can't let anybody, you just, you're going, what you can do, and you get there, and you've been there before. See, I ended up going down the finish line 1967 at Bakersfield. I show up at Bakersfield. I'm supposed to have a pass to photograph on the starting line. No, we don't have your pass. It was supposed to be put in by Doris Herbert at Drag News, right? So here I am, don't have a starting line pass. Okay, well, I wander down to the finish line, and second car down there, during qualifying on, I think it was Friday, is Johnny Mitchell in the Red Mountain Boys car, and he blows the blower off like kaboom, right? I have a photo of it. Oh, cool. Nobody else is down there, just me, right? So, all right, I got me a cool photo, and then I go about half track, and the bonsai car out of Texas, George Cox, he tries to put that thing upside down. He's got it sideways, and oh, I got that one too. So, and I got a couple of really nice race photos from where I was, because smoke on the tires, Perdome racing. I think he was racing Bub Reese from Maryland. One of those smoke on the tires, and really cool. And Perdome's in the Brand Motors Ford car, and then the Jungle 4 racing the Addict, and it's just some pretty cool front motor side by side, boiling in a rooster tail of smoke. And
Yeah.
so that's why I was down at the other end, because I got no pass.
Well, they may have done you a favor when it came to photographing the race, huh?
Yeah, that was Ed Eaton and Gil Cohen. They had just taken over Bakersfield, and no, we're not going to give you a pass. I said, well, Doris Herbert's put, no, you're not on the list. Sorry, goodbye. So I went down the finish line, and it's like I've had more photos published that just walking down the line of Top Fuel guys just sitting there, guys in cars at Perdome, Mike Sorokin in the Hawaiian 2. Let's see, Gary Gavlich in the Purple Gang car, Doc Holliday in the Hoover's car, just doing some really nice portraitures, and then, like I said, going to finish top end, and boom. So it worked out. I mean, and then Drag Racing Magazine loved it, and Mike Doherty basically bought all the photos and for the coverage, and then he got coverage the photos made it into the drag racing, the Photo Greats magazine. That was a
Okay.
little contest I used to have with a lot of the other shooters. How many
It,
photos can you get in the
you've
drag
got
racing Photo Greats?
you've got a picture of Doc Holliday sitting in the Hoover car.
Yeah, because
Would that be
Hoover got
the fishbowl car?
the real nice full body car.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I got
yeah.
to get a hold
Hoover
of you.
got burned.
I want to buy that picture from you. I want
Yeah,
that.
they'll send you one. But Hoover had gotten burned. Okay,
Yeah.
and his doctor said, "No, you don't want to get burned right now again, right?" So Hoover got a hold of Holiday because they're a long time, good friends, and Holiday drove for him for a while. And then, a doctor tells you not to drive dragsters because you're going to get burned. So I'm going to drive a funny car now. I never understood that from Hoover. It's like, Mom, didn't they tell you not to get burned? So you're gonna drive a funny car now?
Yeah, I knew that Doc did some seat time for the Hoovers. I've never seen a picture of it though. I really want to see that.
Well, that car
So
was so beautiful.
oh yeah, and right now on the Cackle circuit, that car, Greg Barta owns. Steve Anderson did a restoration of. Then he sold that car to Greg Barta, and my friend Jerry Newman is the tuner on it.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is just a showstopper. And I'm going to actually put up a picture right here over the top of this of a capture that I just had out at Irwindale at that thing. What an amazing piece of machinery.
Does that
Beautiful.
car? Does he still have still have the Ford motor in it?
No, it's got a 392 in it.
Okay, because it had originally Hoover had a big old Ford with 429. I think it
Okay.
was 427, whatever the stock motors were.
Yeah.
Shotgun motor was 429, right?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Because Coletta showed up at Pomona with one. That's the car he ran into the steel pole with.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a 429. Somebody's going to correct both of us here on when I publish this, so we'll know here. We'll know when it goes up.
It's a Ford, I know that. Although, I'll tell you where all those engines ended up. Pullers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there was a whole influx of those camera motors and the pulling
I
trucks
had
and
no idea that's where they
tractors.
disappeared to.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I've never seen a picture of Doc in that car, so I'd like to see that. I got a question for you here. Now, you ran
Sure.
this by me before we wrap this up here. You ran this by me, I don't know, a couple weeks back in our email. Trophy Queen at OCIR.
Yes.
At some point, you told me was some porn star. Is that true?
That's true.
Who was
Twice.
it?
Not once, but twice.
Really?
Renee Bond, a up and coming porn starlet, was the trophy girl at Orange County twice. And I don't believe the management at the time knew who she was. But
I'm not
yeah,
going to admit to actually knowing who she is either. Let's just put it that way.
but she was twice. And then, of course, Linda Lovelace was the trophy girl at Seattle. Bill Donor flew her in 1972. And
Does that include that picture with Ed Yates McCullough where he's
yeah, he won Funny Car.
I
Now,
knew
I'm
that
not
was
gonna.
Linda Lovelace. The first time I ever saw that picture, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to tell you the incentive that Linda told him to. She told him to go win Funny Car. He was racing Kenny Goodell in the final. Goodell broke on the final, so McCullough had just had a single, right? Well, Linda went and talked to him just prior to the run, and then McCullough went out there and ran low ET, top mile per hour, and won the race on that one run. So he gave him some kind of pep talk incentive.
I can only imagine it had to do with the name of her famous movie, probably.
Yeah, maybe she was something else. I mean, nice lady. I mean, I talked to her for a while, and but yeah, she had her husband there. That Chuck Trainer guy, he was there with her, and
Yeah.
I I met her. Well, actually met her the night before at Puyallup because they had a funny car race at Puyallup, and no, that's a different story. But yeah, that's
You
one of my
know,
first funny car races was Puyallup.
wow.
Yeah, I got to see
We
the Grossi and Austin Fuel Cuda there. You ever hear of that car?
no, I haven't.
Oh, they took a top fuel dragster and threw a body on it.
Oh,
Literally just
jeez.
mounted a CUDA body on it, and it's the fuel CUDA. Oh yeah, this thing was like the body was flapping around. I mean, it was just like there was no windshield in it or nothing. I mean, it just and Dave Grossi drove it, and I think it was an old top gas car. They put a fuel motor in, and then they dropped this body on it, and yeah, it was the fuel CUDA. That was Pat Austin, not Pat. Well, it would have been Walt Austin. Yeah, that was his first venture into the funny
I
cars.
got to go see what I can dig up on that after we're done with this. I got to see this. That's one I haven't heard of. Let's wrap this up this time,
Okay.
Steve, because we're going to do this again. I guarantee you when your new book comes out. But for everybody, this book has been out for a while. I know we're coming late with our interview here, so we've got Southern California Funny Cars, Steve Reyes, and I'm telling you what, I cannot put this book down. Northern California Racing also. With another Arcadia Publishing for Steve Reyes, and coming up soon is going to be Southern California Top
Yeah,
Fuel, and
top
we'll
fuel
we'll try to
dragster.
get Steve back on for that. Congratulations to you, by the way, Steve, for the success.
I'm just, I'm just, hanging in there, just having fun, researching and doing these things that I may try to do a book on OCIR also, the drag racing super track, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like a proposal I put in. So if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, no, we'll find something else to do.
Uh,
You got to keep
Speaking of,
moving, right? You got to keep doing it.
yeah, if you don't have a reason to get up every day, you're not going to get up every day.
Well, I can get up and play with my dog Pee Wee, but
Well, Steve, as always, it's a great treat to have you on. You're
oh,
one of my heroes.
I appreciate the time, and have a good Christmas and New Year and all that stuff, and hopefully I will survive 2023. And
Well, once the new book comes out, Steve, we'll be in contact again, and we'll see what we can tell some more neat stories and talk
whatever
about a
you
new
need,
book.
I've got the top fuel guys. Woo, we could do some stories. I'll tell
Oh,
you.
I bet we can. I bet we can. I'm looking forward to it,
Some
Steve.
of them might even be, I guess clean enough to put on the air.
I'm gonna have to get a little beeper button so I can beep out anything.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
All right, Steve. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care of yourself.
Appreciate it. You too. Thank you.